Hey, that was a lot easier this time. I'm going to go ahead and hit the chat here real quick. And let's see if I can read the chat over here on my iPad. Boy, that window is big, picture in picture. Let's switch to, oh, this again. You can do it. That trackpad battery is no good anymore. Okay. Hey, good. Thanks, Kirby. I'm glad you're here. That's a relief. Okay, I'm closing. Oh, I didn't want to close that. Hold on 1 second. Okay, let's close that. And okay. Let's get this party started. So first off, let me switch on over to that control. Okay. Turn on my iPad. Check the chat. I even hooked up a Bluetooth keyboard to it so that I can... Hey, Russ. So I'll answer some questions there. Russ asked what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I had streaming issues with my network. So I've lowered the bit rate today, and I changed some of the settings. There were also some keyframe settings in YouTube Live, how often it sends a keyframe out that I tweaked. So with any luck, this is going to work better. I also yesterday had no idea that the stream had died when it died. So today I've got a chat up here on my iPad so that I can keep track of that, because the hilarious and embarrassing thing is I went for 45 minutes after it had died without knowing it had died. So 15 minutes in, you guys were done watching, and I was merrily talking to the camera and building the entire thing. And when I went to go check the chat, I realized, hey, this thing hasn't updated in like an hour. So that's my sad story. The overheating device I think I fixed as well, cross fingers, but I have a capture card that is for HDMI to USB, and it had a, it was like 140 degrees on the surface of the case. It's a little aluminum case, so I went ahead and opened the case up so it at least can let some heat out. There was no vent on the thing. It had a heat sink on the chip, but then the whole interior of the thing was baking hot. So that's one part of it. Second part of it is that I now have AC running in my shop, and so ambient temperature is a heck of a lot cooler. So that's hopefully a recipe for everything working. So let's go ahead and get started then. So let me start off with a demo. So what I've got, you saw this yesterday if you were tuned in, so pardon the repetition, but I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, that's the view I want, sorry. Come back. Does it not like if I switch that quickly? Or is that the, that's the one I want, okay. No, wait. That's the one I want, okay. So I've got a monitor here running, and it's not super bright, but hopefully you can see well enough what's going on there. And in the overhead cam, you can see this is my RetroPie inside of an NES cart, and it is running. It's running on a Pi 0, and this is the Joy Bonnet on top of it. So let's go ahead and give a quick demo of gameplay. I can use these controls to switch between different emulators or the RetroPie settings. So I'm going to head to the NES emulator, and I have a bunch of games on here. So let's have, how about some Tetris. I was doing Galaxian or Galaga yesterday. Which one is it? I can never keep those two straight. So here we've got some Tetris, which I feel okay having the ROM for because I'm certain I've paid for Tetris a dozen times in my life. So here we go. So there is the little RetroPie in action. Go ahead and pause that. And you can see here I've got a port for HDMI accessible and a port for the USB. It's micro USB that's used for power. So if I open it up here, I did not screw the screws back on so you can see inside. We have, let me switch to large overhead view. Excuse me. We have the RetroPie, I'm sorry, we have the Pi Zero attached to the bonnet. So there's what the back side of the bonnet looks like there. And then these are the ports that are accessible or that are on the machine, other than the camera port on the side and the little SD slot there for the operating system. So everything is, in this case, just embedded into the top of the lid. And I've cut out holes in the case, as you can see there, for those cables to fit. And then on this one, and I say on this one because I think I'm going to do it differently today, on this one I had drilled out some holes and screwed the Pi bonnet onto the case, which is great. It's really nice and secure. I think I actually don't need it to be that way. I'll at least show you this alternate way today, and then you can decide. This one's a little bit more involved, but it's a very nice finish, and I think the screws look kind of cool on here. These are little 2.5 millimeter nylon screws. So I'm just going to check the chat here for a second to make sure you're not screaming at me no sound, because AT Makers says we've all spoken to air at some point. Half hour of folks screaming no sound. Yeah. All right. Good. No one's yelling panic, so that's great. We were talking, Tony D and Noe and Pedro and PT and Lamore and I were talking about the fact that there's not really a big warning that comes from the streaming software we use when it stops streaming. There's a little 60 by 60 pixel icon that I can see over on my monitor that is green right now, and it went not red, but it went gray yesterday when the stream stopped. So, and I wouldn't notice it anyway, probably. So the chat, you will be my lifeline. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. So if you press both the select and start buttons on here, it will jump the screen back out. Oh, did I just play? No, you saw me playing. Let me switch back to this view here. It will go back out to the menus, and if you press the start button, it brings up this emulation station menu, and I can go and do a nice proper shutdown. So choose quit, shutdown system. Unlike a microcontroller like a Feather, an Arduino, a Teensy, those you can kind of just yank the plug on for the most part and everything's okay. On these, since they're running Linux, they might get angry at you if you yank the power to them. So it's nice to do a graceful shutdown on these. Okay, so with that shut down, I'm going to go ahead and pull power and pull the HDMI and just set those off to the side. And now let's switch again to the overhead cam, and I'll do the build. So what we need is a donor cartridge. This was the one I started on yesterday after the stream died. Hoops. So I was out of cartridges, so what I did was I ran out to a retro gaming store that's here in Burbank, and I picked up a couple of games really cheap. The store, I want to thank them. What the heck's their name? Game Portal. Game Portal, the guy sold me these two cartridges for $3 each, even though they're marked at $4 and $5, because I'm guessing they weren't moving too fast, and he was glad to see them gone. So this is Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf and Jeopardy. So let's use the Fighting Golf here. So first thing you'll need, is a special little security bit. I think this is a pentalobe. It's a 5-sided. Is it 5? I think it's 5-sided. Anyway, it's a NES security bit. There's this, and there's tri-wing screws that they use. So just to get into the thing in the first place, you do need that, or a willingness to drill through the screw if you don't have one of those. Or you can slot screws sometimes like this if you can get in there, although that would be pretty difficult. You'd screw up the case if you used a like a Dremel tool to put a slot in that. But either way, here's a free plug actually for iFixit. The iFixit guys make a few different really nice tool sets that have a lot of security bits in them. So there's a lot of weird screws. Like here's a miniature version of something I've only mostly seen in bathroom stalls. There's like weird bolts, because I guess people steal bolts in public restrooms, but maybe in the chat you guys can discuss what these actual bits are called. But here I'm going to pull out the 3 screws, and thankfully there's not one hidden behind the sticker, I don't think. Usually there's not on these cartridges. Okay, so then it just pops open. And that's the game. And you'll notice that the game is quite a bit bigger than our full-blown Linux computer that we're going to be putting on. Let me get some water. Hold on. So sorry. Well, I feel so much better having the chat right here versus wondering how things are going. Thanks to Tony D for that suggestion. Okay, so there's the old game ROM for Lee Trevino Golf. We're done with that. And so here's my here's the method I've come up with for building the RetroPie into the cartridge. And I'll say, first of all, there's a lot of people who've built these when the NES Classic became really hard to find. A lot of people came out with really cool builds using a Pi Zero. And usually they would also have a USB hub in there, and they intended it to act like this was a console so that you'd plug in a couple of controllers into it. So my idea was just to make this, as you saw me playing with it before, the actual grip, because why not? And it's kind of fun, and it's actually a pretty comfortable size for holding. So, so mine has less stuff in it, but if you go online and you'll see there's a lot of cool builds that people have done where they've wrapped wiring around and tucked everything in and then made a little port sort of plate out of this ridge in here. So my idea is instead to have the Pi Zero right here and cut out some accessibility for the HDMI and the USB, and then I'll cut a slot for the pin headers that the Joy Bonnet will set into. So you can see here's, since I mangled this or built this yesterday while no one was watching, so that's what that will look like, is we'll have the female headers on the Joy Bonnet connected to the male headers on the Pi through this little slot. Okay, so what I'll do at this point is, let me get, oh yeah, this is a, so I'm going to take this Sharpie and set this where you want. Line that up nice. And I'll hold that down and mark it. And this is really, I'm not cutting or anything here, so the only reason to do this is, oops, to get it back to this home position if I ever want to make holes in it or do anything else that requires alignment. I'm not doing a good job of that. Here, stay. Okay, so that's where the thing's going to go. And then with that in place, I will mark out some spots on this little lip. You'll notice, actually, let me close this back up for a second, that, and I could show you on a non-opened game. So there's that little row of edge connectors from the original game ROM. They poke through this little slot here. It's like a millimeter wide slot. So if I close that up, you can see, if I let a little air in from the back of it, you can see there's that little slot. That's not big enough for these ports, so I need a little extra space there. So what I'll do is mark these and cut them. And I've done it a couple of ways. I've done it with a little chisel, and I just tapped through that. Plastic's really forgiving, so you can bring kind of any sharp tool to the table. I think what I'll do today for this one, I'm going to just try it with the box cutter only. So let me take a box cutter, And the first thing I'll do is put a little mark on these. That's confusing. Put a little X on this just for thoroughness. Okay, that I'm getting rid of. That I'm getting rid of. Okay, middle I'm keeping. So what I want to do is score the plastic on both sides at the base and then slice down straight through. And I know that people are going to be concerned about my cutting method here. This is kind of how I learned to use a paring knife on fruit and vegetables from my mom. And I've never cut myself with this method. It's even scarier when you're peeling stuff, but if you're careful about it, it's actually pretty controlled versus cutting towards yourself. This is fine, but anyway, just be careful however you like to do that, so you don't end up needing stitches. There's no sure way to get people excited on the internet than cut anything with anything, because you will be told immediately that your methods are certain death. It's a little awkward doing it for the camera too, but I intend to survive this uninjured. Okay, so now all I need to do is slice straight down into these. This is what I was using a chisel for, but it was a little bit thick, and it turns out this plastic is soft enough that with a little rocking motion and some pressure, you can cut it that 1/4 inch that it needs. Yeah, someone said using a multi-tool with a rounded blade, that's a good idea. You could also get in here with a Dremel. The only thing is with a Dremel with plastic, you end up making some pretty noxious smells, a lot of dust, and you also usually melt the ends of the plastic, so you end up with this kind of bubbled up burr that you have to remove. So once you've cut that, you can basically snap it off with some pliers. Just wiggle. And it comes off pretty neatly. You can see there. It's pretty clean. It's not perfect. You can go in there with a file if you need to, but that will work really well. Okay, so second piece here. Sorry, I'm covering it, but that makes it a little easier to apply some pressure. That should be good enough. And it's actually fine if we got rid of this entire strip if you want to. That'll work just as well, but figured it looks a little neater if we have some ports there. Get an X-Acto out. Clean that up. There we go. Okay, so I'm also going to do the same cuts to the top of the case, so I'll repeat that. And just to line that up properly, I will close the shell and just mark it from within or from without. Let's see if I can get you a view in there. Here, I'll hold my flashlight. Okay. Okay, so let's extend those marks over to the top where we can, whoops, see them when we need them. Just a little reminder of what we're getting rid of. And you know what, just for fun, since I mentioned it, I'll show you how I was doing it with the chisel. It's a little bit of a, grab a hammer of some kind. it's a little bit of an overkill, and there's a slight danger of breaking off more than you want, but what the heck. Here we go. I just aligned this flat side on the inside. Oh, I should score this first, sorry. If I score it first, that gives the stress a preferred place to go that's where we want, so you're less likely to break off parts that you want to keep. The nice thing about working with plastic is it's so forgiving. I know I spent many years as a kid making modifications to things using basically a Swiss Army knife, because plastic, you don't need a lot of tools to work with plastic if you don't have them. Okay, and give it a few taps from the chisel here. And you can see as I was hitting that, it's deforming down. It's ready to break off. A little wiggle. Kind of a testament to the plastic that Nintendo used, that this stuff isn't more brittle. You know, this game was made in 1985, or this cartridge. Hello, Twitchy Raccoon. Welcome to the chat. Oh, I see there's some suggestions Jerry Martin put in there for security bit sets for $9 on Amazon if you need to open up Nintendo things. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's like little Game Boy cartridges and maybe the Nintendo DS that use the little tri-wing screwdrivers. And I think the Wiimotes, I opened those for a project back on Make Television and had to get myself a tri-wing screwdriver for that. Okay, so now I've got ports. And let's see, next step. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to use this sort of second method, which is I'm going to, hey, Basic Pilot, oh my gosh. Go check out Basic Pilot's YouTube channel, guys. He is an awesome guy, and he's a drone pilot, and he is a prankster. And I am always delighted to watch what he's up to, so go check him out. So I'm going to use some foam tape to build up some height on the Pi Zero. So it's going to set up here like this. And then what I'm going to do is when I get it there, I'll be able to make an impression of the header pins onto the inside of the top of the cartridge. Where'd that go? Oh, sorry. Almost screwed that up royally. So I'm going to set this in here, but it's going to be built up with 3 layers of the height from this foam tape. And then when I close the shell, I'll be able to push down on it and get a little impression in the case of where the header pins are. And I'll also use some Sharpie on the 4 outside ones so I know where those lines are. And that'll just give me a guide for cutting a fairly neat hole for the header pins. You could also just measure this well, but I'll show you this. This is kind of a nice way to do this with using the exact parts that are in there. So get some scissors. Also, I will, I don't know if the Basic Pilot, if he has a secret identity or not, but I will say that he is a very experienced cinematographer and special effects guy who helped me out with some of my videos in the past. So also, I think a lot of this community who's in the chat know each other, but if you don't know AT Makers, go check him out. He builds some really wonderful assistive technology for particularly people in wheelchairs and he's doing some really great stuff. So I encourage you, if you like this kind of making, and in particular making that has a very noble cause, check him out. Okay. So now I'll set that right about... Oh, that's backwards. Jeez Louise. That wouldn't help anybody. You could do something like that if you wanted to. I mean, it would be upside down and terrible, but if you wanted to, you could build this so that the cables are permanently fixed, even with some strain relief and coming out of the cartridge. I decided I wanted to do this so that the cartridge that you bring around is as neat and small as possible, and then you can plug into your wires. And the power here could potentially be a battery pack, like a nice big 5-volt, what do you call it, like phone charger type of battery, or you could fit a big LiPo inside of here probably, and then you would only have to plug in your USB, which would be great, or sorry, your HDMI. But okay, so that said, I've got ports here. This is going to go on here like this, and let me just neaten up for a second and get a black Sharpie. Okay, so I'm throwing some glasses here. So what I'm going to do is get a bunch of ink on the corner 4 pins, and paint would work probably better, but let's see if that doesn't dry too quickly. Close the cartridge up. Got to get it fully aligned. Okay, so now it is actually resisting being closed a little bit, so I'm going to squish down on it just to transfer that ink and also the dots of the header pin as they dig into the plastic a little bit. Give it a little wiggle. Let's see how we did. All right, so that may be hard to see. If I get this little glare, you can see if I can point at it. You can see right there. I don't know if you can see that. Can I get closer? Focus might start to fail. All right, so trust me. Oh, there's one of them. There's dots on here. So what I'm going to do is make those a little bigger, and this is just going to give me my guide for cutting this hole out. This is one that I'd be tempted to do it with a Dremel, but the way I've done it the last 2 times, I've just again used a straight edge and an X-Acto to make a little score mark for myself, and then a box cutter over it a few times to dig all the way through and then pry it out. So I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger this time, because last time I made it just the size of those headers, and I needed to file it out with a square file or flat file quite a bit to fit the female header side through. So what I'll do is you just need some sort of flat straight edge that's pretty small. I'm going to use this feeler gauge because it was just handy. I have a cool little, where'd that ruler go? I have this great little ruler. This was from Doug North, Automata builder Doug North. It's called the Executive Pocket Pal. Let's see, does that fit? It only fits for one of those. All right, no, yeah? Yeah, let's try it for that one. But then I think it's too big for the other one just because this plastic is in the way, which I don't have any reason to get rid of it. So there we go. So I'm going to hold that straight like that and mark that line to cut. And like I say, I want to extend this a little bit bigger than it was. Okay. Is that even straight? Let me try that again. Kind of hold it up against these posts. It won't actually matter because we're not going to see this hole, but boy, it'll bug me if that thing is... Okay, so not that line, but that line. And then, let's see, can I use this for the other one? No. All right. This one, I will have to trust the... That thing is in the way. Oh well. I will have to trust... Yeah, how did I do this the other day? That wheel is totally in the way. What can I use? Alright, I'm going to use the power of the side of this marker being kind of fat. And my pinky to make a consistent line. Okay? There to there. We can be a little vague. Good. Alright, so... these things out of the way, and actually I'm going to hold up this straight edge now and use my X-Acto. Here's a question. Am I still streaming? Yeah, that's green. I just noticed the chat was quiet. I'm just going to say, hi chat. If you guys get too quiet, I get very nervous now after my experience yesterday. Seriously, I talked for 45 minutes to air, as ATmaker puts it. All right, that started. Yeah, this one, I'm going to just eyeball. I see chat movement out of the corner of my eye. That's a good thing. Yeah, once you make your first cut, the blade pretty well stays in that groove because it's such soft plastic. I am reading these chats. Yes. This is an innovation today. My first couple live streams, I did not have a chat window near me, so I couldn't tell what was going on. But today, I put an iPad over here. Oh, don't do that, ATmaker. You are evil. Suggesting that we mess with John by saying the chat froze. That's a terrible idea. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take the box cutter and just follow in that groove. This is like the last blade on this piece, so I can't crack it off. I kind of wish I had a fresher blade. So same sort of thing. I'm going to get the... Actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I think I will drill out these corners with a little Yankee screwdriver, Reamer kind of guy. I'll get a block of wood. And I will get an awl and tap. Where are you, awl? There you are. Tap a little mark into these so that the Reamer doesn't dance around. In a bind, you could probably make this hole just with the hammer and awl by perforating your way down the plastic. Okay. And my favorite little hole making device here, the Reamer. It's better than a drill bit. It's not a spiral. It doesn't tear and yank and pull at the plastic. It just cuts it from sideways. It's awesome. Can anyone name which movie has one of the most iconic uses of a very large Yankee screwdriver? In the chat, anyone? Someone just called me meticulous on the chat, so I threw away my shavings here into the garbage instead of just blowing them. How do you like that? Okay, back to cutting this out. So yeah, this would be, once you got these corner holes, this would be a great candidate for using a Dremel tool, because usually you've got a circular blade and you overcut the ends and all that stuff. But this is plastic. You can kind of choose your own adventure and how you want to do it. I'm going to support this with my thumb. How's that work? No, I don't like that. Also, the little hole helps you to stop when you get to the end of the line. It just grabs it. And what you'll see here after just a few cuts, not yet, yeah, you start to see the white, the plastic deform there, so you can tell you're getting close. And if you like, you can cut just halfway from each end. You get a shorter stroke and you can apply more pressure at the start and the stop. Yeah, you know, I'm super tempted to go get a Dremel and do the rest of this. But, oh, the movie, let's see. Someone said, hey, Aline Cab, hola, from Costa Rica. Finding Nemo? I don't know if Finding Nemo have one. Found No Country for Old Men, Tremors. They may have them. The one I'm thinking of is the Blues Brothers. Towards the end when Elwood is in the elevator and they're playing Girl from Ipanema, and he has this bizarre plan for taking out the elevator. He yanks this giant Yankee screwdriver out of his jacket and pops the panel off of the inside of the elevator, just gets the screw out in one shot, and then uses like hairspray and a lighter or something as a flamethrower to mess with the electronics. That's the one I was thinking of. Which reminds me, I've been meaning to introduce my son to the Blues Brothers. I think he's 13. He's getting close to the age when that becomes important. Oh, I've gone a little on the inside of that line, sadly, so I think I'll have to widen this with a file. Likelihood of blood is, yeah, definitely a lot. Have you noticed I tend to have scars on my hands? Usually not from bladed things, but just things that are poking out when you're screwing and unscrewing, stuff like that. All right, getting through. Now I mean business. Oh yeah, I can feel that one. It is cutting through. So there we go. So getting through the label there, yeah, that hole is made. Right. Yeah, and I'll I guess since people are talking about blood, I would suggest that you use safety precautions if you're going to do this, and adult supervision if you're in need of such a thing. All right, mostly through. I think we can get one side out and wiggle it. Oh, let's cut the ends too. You know, for these, I'm going to pop out the handy chisel on a block of wood. And there's my hammer. Boy, tools accumulate on your workbench fast. Oh, let me cut that label so it's... There we go. We have liftoff. Now, I'm going to trim off some of this burrs, these burrs. Let's see if it fits. I bet we'll need to do a little bit of filing. Oh, it looks like a dog bone. That's cute because of my drill. Right, so this will be like this. It's pretty close, but yeah, I'm going to grab a little file. Did I put it away? I think I did. Here you go. A little jeweler's file. It just happens to be the right size for that exact operation. I don't want to fling blades everywhere, so let me... Heated box cutter would make it fast. That's awesome. I have never heard of that. That's really a great idea. Thank you, MPP3RCINX. 1000-degree box cutter versus NES cartridge. Isn't that a YouTube channel? How do you recommend heating up your... oh, there you go, soldering iron. Soldering iron to heat up the blade. That's a great idea. All right, if I ever go into business making these things, I will try that method. Let's see. And we're through. Look at that. A little bit of junk there. Okay, now the question is, how's the alignment? Do these go together? Okay, there's the pins. Connecting? Yeah, that seats in there nicely. Okay, this is now my new preferred way to do this. Now that I've done it 3 times, I have preferred ways of doing this. Ooh, let me switch the camera just for the fun of it. So the first one I had done, I basically bolted the pie to the back side of the bonnet. I actually didn't bolt it, I just placed it in the headers. These are an extra set of headers to keep it from getting pushed down against the back, so these hold it in place. And screwed the bonnet, Joy Bonnet, into the top. It looks really cool, and maybe I'll do that on this one just to add visual interest, but this foam tape thing where that Pi Zero is connected to the bottom, it really feels nice and stable. Love it. Okay, so let's see. Let me check my notes and see what I thought are we going to do next. The wiggle off apply foam tape. Yeah, I got that. Let's see. Can I use this? I have a trackpad here. Does it work? I'm going to switch. Let me go over to. Let me go over to this view for a second. I'm just happy to be using my camera switcher that I built in the last live stream, right? A little coffee over here. Oh, yeah, so by the way, pretty pictures. This is the Pi Zero I'm using. These are $5. And here is the Joy Bonnet. These are $15, right? Yeah. And then I don't think it comes with it, so you'll need a set of breakaway headers, which are 95 cents. Male headers to go into the Pi Zero. And so by the way, we have that third port available. That, you can't see that, there you go. That third port, there. And what you'll want is something like this little on-the-go connector hub type of thing if you want to be able to plug in a keyboard, a mouse, a little Wi-Fi dongle, and it's got Ethernet on it. So I really like this one to be able to SSH from one computer into the Pi Zero once it's on. Once you've plugged it into the same network, you can talk to that Pi Zero. So you wouldn't necessarily need a keyboard and mouse on it if you don't want. But if you're using a different computer to talk to it, this is pretty great to be able to just plug it into Ethernet. So these are $15. This is absolutely not a necessity for this project because you're gonna make an SD card with all of the things you need on it already. You'll be up and running without ever touching a keyboard with the Pi Zero if you make a RetroPie for it, and put the Joy Bonnet load script on it. I don't think that needs a connection. I think it's all in the image that Adafruit has up on GitHub. Just look at Joy Bonnet on GitHub. And so let's drill out, file, screws, close it, test it, screw it. Okay, let's launch this thing. This is quicker than I thought this time, but the case is facing the wrong way. You're right. So Darth Blaze Anthony points out. So switching. Oh, darn it. Yeah. So my little switcher is just a keyboard. It's an HID device, so I actually need to be clicked on my broadcast software for it to do anything. Otherwise, it's sending keyboard shortcuts to some other application. So the original label faces the wrong way. You could, if you cared to, you could do something like you take off the label, flip it around, make your own label for it. On this one, I just put the Raspberry Pi sticker. It'd be cool to make your own graphics for this, actually, like maybe extend the silk screen. That I think Phil Burgess, Phil B, made this beautiful silk screen on this board, and it's shaped like a dog bone SNES controller. So it'd be kind of fun to continue that graphic out onto here. Yes, you have a lot of options there. I opted not to go this way because there would be a lot more cutting and drilling, and I like having the controller up towards the top. So if you flipped all of this way, maybe if you could route cables out the back, out the bottom. But anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I know that's going to bug some people. So let's see. I think not seeing the sticker is, when you look at it most, is a waste. JM. Not seeing the sticker, maybe you mean the way that you look at it? Yes, I apologize, but that's how it is. So look at this one. That one won't bother you as much, I think. Let's try this one out. Let's, what I would say is let's test it, and if everything works, then I will close it up. So, move my water. What I recommend on these, I don't know if this is like a stated thing, but it seems like having the HDMI plugged in before you plug in the power and boot it up is pretty necessary. A lot of the time it just never seems to identify the monitor. All right, so there goes HDMI, and then the from this view, the leftmost USB port is the power one. And now it should boot up. You could definitely do some cool stuff with on-off buttons. I have an idea maybe for a future project of doing a breath-based controller for something. So if you remember doing this to try to make cartridges work, which is probably just voodoo. I don't know, maybe your humidity is doing something. You're moistening the pads. But anyway, to get these to work, you used to blow on them. I've talked with Noe and Pedro and most of the creative engineering team, PT and Lamore, about ideas around that, of using that to maybe get rid of a static screen or to do a startup or a shutdown or something like that. But the way this is right now, you just give it power to start it up, and you can shut it down from the shutdown script that's inside of the emulation station. So there it's booting up. Put some things away while that's going on. We've talked about this, but Kirby has asked me about this. I'm not organized by nature, but I do try to put tools away pretty soon after I use them. Otherwise, I just get chaos everywhere and can't find anything. Okay, we are running. I don't know why it boots into Game Boy. Maybe that's just because it's alphabetically the first emulator on here. So here's RetroPie. Here's the settings, so you can go through and change stuff here. Let's go to Nintendo, and I'll do a little test of, how about Galaga. I have a weird Super Mario Brothers ROM on here that seems like it runs fast, and yesterday it was doing super bizarre stuff, so I'm not sure what that's about. But Galaga is a standby. Okay, and I cannot play this mirrored image watching my monitor over there, so I'm going to lean in and check it out. I realize I could be like a Twitch channel if you all want to tune in live to watch a guy play NES games that I'm not particularly great at, but... In fact, I don't know if this is something that everyone has known for a long time, but I recently got a bit better at Space Invaders and this one by... getting killed right there. By watching basically my guy move side to side, so I dodge bullets much better than watching up top and not being sure where the bullets are. All right, I completed a level. And so now if I hit these, I can jump back out, and we can leave that there. So, that constitutes the NES cartridge build. You can post any questions you have in the chat, and then I've just got a couple of other little things I want to talk about and show you a tease for an upcoming project. So, this is an Atari game. Nice shirt. Oh, hey. Okay, so let me talk about the shirt. Let's go. I'll leave this here so there's something interesting in the thing, and I'm going to put the one with the backwards label on it just to taunt people who don't like that backwards label. I'm sorry. I'm not normally mean, but there you go. I wanted to thank Amy DD. If you go to amydd.com, Amy Double D, she is a software developer in video games and VR or AR. She's cosplayer. We featured some of her stuff before on Adafruit, and she recently gave us a talk in London and had asked me about using some material from one of my past projects in her presentation, and I said, heck yes. And as a unexpected surprise, she sent me this shirt, which she makes. She has a store on her site. This one's what? In the beginning, there were only 8 bits. I thought it was a cool shirt. And I wore it. If you saw my partial stream yesterday, I put it on for that. And then my stream died. I actually took it off. I didn't wear it all day yesterday and then again today. I didn't sleep in or anything. I just put it back on because I thought it was a cool, appropriate shirt for today's stream. So check that out. Thank you, Amy. That was super awesome of you. And let's see, other questions from the chat. Bye, Matthew. Matthew had to go. Thanks, Basic Pilot. If you didn't see, hey, Basic Pilot, if you didn't see the last stream, I think it was, I built this button box to do my switching. So it's a cigar box with some arcade buttons, and I have a little microcontroller in there, and I am sending commands over USB to my broadcast setup. So there you go. Noah and Pedro say Amy DD is their spirit animal. She rocks. Oh, question about the cameras I'm using for the stream. So the overhead camera is a little Logitech? Yeah, it's a little Logitech. I think it's C920 webcam with a long cable going back, and I have it on one of these nice little Manfrotto arms. And then my main camera that I'm pointing out right now, that's a Sony mirrorless, so it's a 6300, and that's what I use for most of my videos. I like it. It's just got a kit lens on it, which you can zoom if you need to, but and then that's running through an HDMI converter. The software I'm using, Basic Pilot, is called Wirecast. But you mentioned OBS. I think that Tony D on Adafruit uses that one. Very similar. Okay. C920. Always C920. Yeah, that's the C920, Darth. So the other things I wanted to talk about. Okay, so this is a new product that I'm going to probably make another pinball controller around. This is the Gemma M0. It's teeny and awesome. Wait, let me switch so you can see that all big. Look at that thing. It's a beautiful, possibly out of focus, Gemma M0. They just came out. They got that matte black finish on it, which is totally rad. And it has 3 pins and can do HID, so it's perfect for that pinball setup I made to talk to the iPad. So I think I'm going to build something like that, but maybe from scratch this time for the case, so that we don't have to rely on buying a discontinued product to take over the brain of it. We'll do a little one from scratch. So I'm excited to play around this, and hopefully I'll write the code in Python, which is pretty cool. That's one of the things with these, is that you can run CircuitPython on it. I'm right? Tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. I think we can run CircuitPython on this already. And so that's going to be something coming up. Check it out. And those are $10, super cheap. The Teensy was perfect for what I did before and can run way, I mean, that thing is a beast, so it could run lots and lots of ports and lights and sound if you needed to. But this might be a cool little cheap way to do an arcade controller. What else? So, this is kind of cool. So I've got a... if any of you were following my Twitter or Instagram yesterday, I've got this, I'm going to put this in the way of the camera. I've got this linear actuator, and I'm testing it out for an escape room project. And I'll set this, let me switch cameras, sorry. I'll set this here. So I just have a plywood box that I bolted it to for now. So if you're watching my feed, I made a couple of brackets, clevis brackets, which I 3D printed and then lost. Where are they? Well, 2 of them are on there, but I printed a couple of extras just in case I wanted to try some different configurations. These are bolted. These have lots of bolts on them now for no particular reason. So let me show this first. I'll switch the camera again. I was just trying to not lose the nuts and bolts that I had for this, so I turned it into a funny thing. Okay, so there's the clevis bracket. Let's get some light on that. This thing's in the way of the light. There's a little more light. Okay, so one for the base and one for the actuator end. And as you can see here on this one, can you actually see that? Let's try a little camera zoom here. Hold on, I'm going to see if you can see this a little better. Okay, it's a little better. Hopefully that'll autofocus. So right now I just have it, I'm just hitting it with 12 volts to actuate it. And if that wire is long enough, it just is long enough, we can extend it. Like that. And I don't actually know how much weight it can take, what it's rated for. I gotta check. And then reverse polarity, and that's 12 volts doing that. So someone was asking earlier about the range on some of the packet radio projects. I'm not using the LoRa one. Those are ridiculous and overkill for what I need, like 2 kilometers or something they can do, or more if you tune awesome antennas. I'm using the other ones, which are the RFM69HCWs, and I'm easily getting stuff, 500 yards away for the types of commands. It's really, really low bandwidth, so it's just little messages. Like when I'm doing this RFID stuff, it's just, yes, this was the answer we're looking for this chess problem thing that I've got that I'm working on. So when the board reads the proper pieces and the puzzle is solved, it's going to send a message to a feather remotely that's going to actuate this. So I think it's kind of cool, rather than having everything wired together and run from one place. I'll have, oh, that's weird. You're looking at just my mouth because I zoomed in. I will have the feather, RF feathers talking to each other so that I can send commands remotely to actuate lights and sounds and open things. So I'm excited about that. That's pretty fun. And I'm sure at some point I will put files up for this. I might redesign them. These were based on a design from someone who I couldn't find attribution to. He had put it up on a Dropbox on YouTube. I modified them to fit my thing, but I don't want it to be someone else's from scratch design if anyone gets bent out of shape about that. So I'll probably put those up if you need them. It's a pretty cool kind of thing to 3D print, honestly, because that would cost $10 or so for one, just like a one-off off of Amazon. Probably cheaper if you got them in bulk somewhere or from a Chinese website. If you go to Servo City, you'll probably spend 10, 15 bucks per. And since this is pretty light duty and I'm not moving any huge weight, a 3D printed PLA part is pretty great for this sort of thing, and you can make it exactly as you want. Let's see. My head's cut off. Yes, it was 18 makers. You may have used for these an assistive tech, maybe a collaboration. Oh yeah, cool. Please contact me. That's pretty interesting. So let's see. Was there anything else? Oh, sorry about the camera. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say is I want to say thank you to a couple of 3D printer filament companies, Melt Ink 3D and Matter Hackers. I had put out a call asking if they could donate some filament for a 3D printer that I'm donating to Joey Hootie, who a lot of you will remember. He was the kid with the marshmallow gun and Obama at the White House Maker Faire. And he's about 20 years old now, and his mom had contacted me about finding a place for Joey to use a 3D printer because he's in a mental health care facility. He was diagnosed a year ago with schizophrenia, and this was the first time he's been interested in maybe getting into some making. And so I'm very thankful to those companies for donating a few spools of filament. I'm going to take that stuff over next week and get Joey up and running on that. So thank you. That was really kind of you. And let's see, does that wrap it up? I feel like it does. Any other questions I'll take in the chat? And let me move over here for a second. And I can check my notes. And let's see, I think that is all. All right, well, thank you everybody for hanging out. And I look forward to doing something next time. I don't know what that is yet, but send me some suggestions. Okay. And I will just catch up with the chat for a second in case you actually did post questions. We'll spend a few minutes here. Oh, I've done it again. I need to always remember to click on Wirecast before I think my button box is going to magically work. Ooh, I bumped this thing, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Hey, Jeff Nash. Good to see you on here. Jeff Nash is a super awesome guy and a great software developer and makes unbelievable Halloween haunts stuff. So track him down. I don't know if you want to put a link in there to your work, Jeff, but oh, the mic. So Ryder Sadlovsky asks, what mic am I using? I am really fortunate to have a super nice mic. It's a Sennheiser wireless pack with a little lavalier. I mean, it's a good mic, but it's a great wireless setup. That works really, really well for this kind of stuff. I was planning to do this with, because when I was shooting my videos before, I had a lavalier mic plugged into a little Zoom recorder in my pocket, which is super when you're recording stuff in advance. But for live, I didn't really want to have a long cable running back to the mixer, so I'm using this nice wireless setup. Do you have to use a different SD card image for the Pi Zero? That's a good question. The one I'm using, Tyler Cooper at Adafruit put together this one because it's a RetroPie image for the Pi Zero, probably specifically, maybe not, that has the Joy Bonnet stuff already installed. So I assume that's on our GitHub. If anyone knows, Noah and Pedro, if you know, that would be cool to put a link to that. And I guess when I put up when this thing finishes cooking and goes up permanently, I'll put some links in there, including the info on that one. MPP3RC Inks. The mixer I'm using is a little Alesis mixer. It's 3 channels. I can tell you specifically. It's 4. It's the Alesis Multimix 4 USB FX. I think they're $89 on Amazon, and it's a perfectly nice little mixer. Yeah. So yes, you need a coupon code next. I don't have a coupon code to give. You guys got one? Noah and Pedro? Any coupon codes? Can you find Adafruit coupon codes on Retail Me Not and stuff like that? Probably. We probably just lost 10% on all orders for the next week from me saying that. I'm sure people thought of it. Okay, yeah, so someone said there's 2 versions. Phil B! Phil B knows these things really well. Smart Phil B, thank you. There's 2 versions of RetroPie, for Pi 0 and 1, and for Pi 2 and 3. So we have the script to install Joy Bonnet code. Super awesome. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys all so much for coming and hanging out and watching and being active in the chat. Go have some fun building yourself a NES Retro Cart. Post some pictures. We want to see what hideous abomination of a game you choose to carve up. Thanks, guys.